Hello, everyone. Welcome to Why Wellness. I'm Gina Rose, a certified personal trainer and fitness nutrition specialist, and I created this platform for so many of us to share our why. Oftentimes, we hear this buzzword question in the health and fitness industry, and I couldn't think of a better way than to compile our stories right here on my podcast, Why Wellness. We're here discussing inspiring, relatable, and motivating stories from health and fitness professionals across various platforms. Please subscribe, rate, and share my podcast. It would mean so much to me. I can't wait to share this next episode with you. Welcome back to Why Wellness. I have James Patrick, who is an award-winning photographer, best-selling author, business coach, podcast host, and speaker based in Phoenix, Arizona. He's the founder of FITposium, an annual conference for fitness entrepreneurs. James has presented coast to coast in the United States and has been interviewed for numerous TV, magazine, and podcast spots. His mission is to create art and opportunity for others, and I am so excited to have him join me today. Welcome, James.
What's going on, Gina? Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. I'm so excited to kind of take this in another direction. I think my audience is going to be a little bit surprised. Usually I'm speaking to personal trainers. I'm speaking to doctors. I've had physical therapists on, meditation, all that good stuff. And so I know that you're in this space in sort of a unique way. And to start off, I want to really just talk about the beginning. If you can tell us a little bit about who you are, because I myself am still learning a little bit about you as well. We recently connected, and I just would love to hear kind of your beginnings into this space.
You know, for me, my entrance into the fitness industry was both somewhat accidental, but then somewhat intentional. My background, actually, I started as a journalist when I was in college. And while working at different newspapers, still trying to get my degree, at some point, an editor I worked with, camera in my hand, and said, listen, I need you to go take photos to go along with some of the articles that you're writing. And for me, it was just another way to, create and tell stories just in the visual element as opposed to the written element. But also, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Gina, I was in college at the time. It was a second paycheck for me. I got 2 bylines working at a newspaper, so that meant 2 different paychecks. But the more I did it, the more I found a fascination with photography, so that by the time I was ready to leave college, I had already established my photography business. I was already shooting for different magazines, different newspapers, different commercial clients. But out of college, I did what so many of us do, and I took a safe job. And for me, that safe job was to take a job in marketing. So I got a job in marketing where I spent a better part of a decade, 7 years working in marketing. But in this time, I was still working on my photo business. Now, as we were coming into the recession back in 2008, well, a lot of my photo clients were going out of business. And at this time in my career, I'm doing a little bit of everything because I was too afraid to niche down and say, this is what I do. This is what I specialize in. So I photographed events, I photographed portraits, and I photographed families, and I photographed fashion, I photographed architecture. You name it, I was taking photos of it. But when the recession hit and clients' budgets got constrained and they had to make hard decisions, let's just say, for example, let's say a fashion project. Who are we going to hire for this fashion project? We're going to hire the guy who specializes in fashion if we only have X amount of dollars to invest in this. Are we going to hire the person who specializes in it? Or are we going to hire James, who's a journalist, he could do it, but is he going to do it as well as the specialist? And the answer was no, he's not going to. So I started to lose a lot of my work back at the time. And I was thinking, you know what, that's probably good that I got my marketing job. And maybe this side hustle of photography, maybe it was good for a period of time. Maybe I'll put the camera back up on my shelf and just do my real job, right? I mean, I feel like a lot of us have been there, but it kept gnawing at me on the inside. It says, you know, I'm not ready to put the camera up yet. So let me just hone down. Let me just do the one thing I love to do, which at that point in my life was I loved working with athletes. Now, at this time, there was not really what you would call a fitness industry. I mean, there was the start of what we are seeing now within our industry, which is, you know, I was reading in like Entrepreneur Magazine at the time, Forbes, Inc., Fast Company. I'm reading all this stuff about how health and wellness is on the verge of erupting. And they're thinking more gyms are going to open, more people are going to register as personal trainers, more juice bars, more health clubs, all this. We are at the forefront of this exploding well, that's a good place to be. And so I started to niche down my work and only focus on this one thing, which is sports and athletic portraiture. That's the only thing I focused on. And sure enough, the industry did take off. And sure enough, my work as a photographer took off with it, so much so that I walked away from the marketing job. That in my career as a photographer, getting in right when the fitness industry was really just being cast, now flash forward, I've shot more than 500 magazine covers in the health and wellness space. From there, we look at so many of my clients were struggling, not just on how to make great images, we can help them with that. Not just in how to get published, we can help them with that. But what do they do with all the brand recognition? With building a brand, building a story that is worth being noticed, worth being remembered, worth being recognized, and worth investing in. I had a client who came to me and says, I'd love to be published. It's a request I get a lot. I said, all right, well, let's see what we can do. So we did this photo shoot and she had the right imagery. She had the right brand story. And off that single photo shoot, we got her 3 magazine covers off one photo shoot. I followed up with her maybe a year later, just wondering how things were going, assuming she was swimming in it, right? And she said, well, I'm out of business. So what do you mean you're out of business? How is that possible? And she said, I had no idea what to do with all the attention. And there was that light bulb moment for me, Gina, which is just because I had a background in marketing and spent 7 years in marketing, we're not taught marketing. Had I not worked in marketing, I was not taught in marketing journalism school or really any of the education I had never taught me what to do with all the skills I was learning. I realized the same was true in the health and wellness industry. And thank goodness that I spent 7 years working in marketing. So I said, let's congregate people, let's bring them together, let's have a conversation about this. And that's how we founded our FITposium conference, which we've done now for 6 years, which is bringing people together around an idea of how do you build, market, and profit from a brand in the fitness industry. And over the course of 6 years, we've had more than 1,500 people come through our conference. That was a long-winded story of how I got into the fitness industry, but then really how my art in the fitness industry combined with my work in marketing within the fitness industry.
Yeah, for sure. And you touched on a lot of things that I definitely want to talk about. And I think just to back it up real quick, you mentioned, so were you in photojournalism or?
I never was in photojournalism.
Okay.
I never had any formal training as a photographer.
Okay.
The one photo class I did take was a prerequisite as part of my journalism degree. Mm-hmm. And I didn't do well in it. I think maybe a C- in my defense. I don't think the teacher really liked me. And in her defense, I don't think I was really doing that well. It was the big shift in getting into photography from being a writer was I had a publisher of a newspaper that I was working on, a small community newspaper. And when I onboarded at that newspaper, I onboarded as a staff writer. He saw my portfolio of photo work and he took me out of the staff writer pool and he put me into the staff photography pool. Now, granted, he could have hated my writing. I'm not sure, he never told me, but he might have saw something in my photography work. And that's when I started to really take photography a lot more serious than just my writing career.
I love that. So I went to school for business management and then corporate communications and journalism. So having that writing background, I have found too, has been amazing to be able to transition into the fitness space. I wrote for Fit Ventures for a little while, covering just the Baltimore market. So anything health and wellness related, pop-ups, what's latest and greatest. So that's been really great. And for a little while, I worked for the Russell Street Report, which is again local, covered the Baltimore Ravens. So it's really cool to hear like where you got started and how it transitioned into where you are now, because I think that brings a lot of hope for people who might have multiple interests. And I think that you are just, the epitome of that because, you're doing photography, you're doing your conference, which I really want to touch on, I think would be a great segue next is FITposium. Just can you tell us, I know you started telling us how that was born, but can you tell us where it's at now and how it's still growing?
It's so funny because when you bring up this idea of multiple interests, one of the things that really holds back a lot of people is they will say, I'm not sure what I'm passionate about, so I don't really know what to do. And until I find my passion, I don't really want to move forward with anything. But this is the thing about passion. Passion is completely in hindsight. You don't have passion before you do something. You develop passion by doing it. I did not have passion as a writer till I was a writer. I didn't have passion as a photographer until I was a photographer. I mean, how could I? I'd never held a camera before. And, the same could be said for cultivating our event. I had no experience in the event space. And some may have said I had no business being in the event space. I had a background in journalism, photography, and marketing at that point. Mm-hmm. And so when I sat down with my team to say, what would happen if, which by the way, that question, what would happen if, has spurred so many things for us. And it's a question that I want all your listeners to start asking themselves, what would happen if, and then start to fill in the blank from there. So we asked the question, what would happen if we just brought together people who are in this industry, who had a common interest, who wanted to support each other as a community, versus everyone just trying to navigate this on their own and not really sure what step to take? What if we cultivated and fostered that community? And that's how we started. This was back in 2015. And we brought together, we had a small room at a Holiday Inn Express. It's funny to think about it in hindsight, but we filled the entire room with 55 people in a room that was sized maybe for 40. Having no clue what we were doing. I remember my team and I showed up the day of our conference, and we just had we had a little easel and we had a little projector that we borrowed from a friend. And they're like, all right, we're here to host our conference. And, but it went so well that the next year we tripled our attendance and we had 150 people. And then the year after that, we had 200. And then the year after that was 250, then 300. And at our height, when we were doing the large in-person events, in a pre-COVID world, we had close to 500 people coming together from over half a dozen countries. I think at our peak, we had people from 7 countries coming out to spend 3 to 4 days with us in Arizona to just connect with amazing speakers. And really, we honed in on 3 different elements of the conference. And this was how are we going to differentiate ourselves? So the 3 elements of our conference, one was information. How do you build, market, and profit from a brand, your business in the fitness industry? I'll be honest with you, Gina, information is ubiquitous, and anything we teach you on stage, you can find on YouTube for free. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that we don't have great information, we don't have great speakers, but guess what? The speakers we have are the speakers you can find on YouTube. They're the speakers you can find speaking at 100 other conferences. So information does not distinguish what makes an event unique. So we had to look at something else. So we looked at connection. Okay, so we could bring together passionate professionals in the health and wellness space who want to support each other versus being competitors with one another. That helps. And the people who come in, they leave as friends. We see it every single year. It's amazing. But once again, any conference can say that. Okay. So our unique differentiator, how we owned a platform that no one else was doing, is we said, we're going to give you opportunities to grow your brand exposure and opportunities to grow your brand awareness and your brand credibility. And the way we can do that is we're going to be the conference, the only conference that will make direct connections and partnerships with top media outlets to give you brand media exposure. Meaning, if you attend one of our conferences, you have a high likelihood that you will sit across the table from the editor of Oxygen. You'll get up and then you'll go meet with the editor of Strong. You'll get up and then you go meet with the editor of Fitness Magazine, then Inside Fitness Magazine, then Women's Health and Fitness Magazine, then Strong Fitness Australia, then Train Magazine, then Train for Her Magazine. Because guess what? They're all partners of ours. They attend every single year, and every single one of them at our conference selects our attendees for features in their magazines. So our attendees, just by attending, dozens of them every year, not just a few, dozens. I think in our 2020 conference, almost 50 people were selected for features, everything from magazine covers to podcast interviews. At the year before that, it was 36 people. Every year, people get picked up for amazing features that bring attention into their ecosystem. And at the conference, we teach them, here's what you're going to do with all this attention, with all this brand awareness that you're earning.
I'm excited because I have a feature coming out in March, so the spring issue of Oxygen Magazine.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Future of Fitness. So I'm excited about that, and I love that you shared the story about having your easel in the Holiday Inn, because I think that's where I personally am. That's where a lot of my listeners are. That's where a lot of my colleagues and peers are, because we are trying our best to use the sources, the platforms, the connections, resources to stand out in a world that you just said is very, very saturated. And I just love to hear those types of success stories, because you can relate. Everyone starts from somewhere. And so I'm curious, what was your breakthrough moment, would you say?
That's such a fascinating question because I don't know if I could distill it down to a single moment.
Yeah.
It's more like a constant stream of realizations of what we want versus what we do not want. And I think that's the big thing. And I want to touch on something, you mentioned, like, obviously we've had a lot of success with our conference. 1,500 people have come through our doors, but it's important to tell you that we had to completely fail and fall flat on our face for this conference to work. The first time, and I left this out when I told the story, the first time we went to launch FITposium, it was 3 months earlier than when we actually launched it. And we only had 2 people registered. We failed at figuring out how to tell the story of what this conference was, about why it mattered, and about why people could not afford not to be there. Okay, that was like a triple negative right there. We failed at executing our conference the first go around. We had 2 RSVPs for our event. We had to cancel the event because it would have been, it would have been an embarrassment for our speakers.
Okay. How did you handle that? I love hearing the stories about overcoming that. So I'm glad you said whether you canceled it or would you keep going with it? So
we ended up saying, listen, we're going to postpone this for 3 months until we can get our act together and figure out how to do this appropriately. And the 2 people registered, obviously we refunded them right away. And then I did one-on-one coaching with them. I said, listen, I'm going to make sure that the time that you were investing in this is met and then over delivered on. So I went and I drove and I met with each of them in person. Because at the time, 90% of our attendees were here in Arizona. So I did one-on-one coaching sessions with them in person to make up for the fact that we could not deliver them the event that they thought they were investing in. And then 3 months later, we were able to kick off the conference and we were able to launch it successfully and oversell it. Okay, which was really great for us. But it took us failing to figure out, okay, we need to invest more of our time, energy, and resources in how we're telling this story. And we need to tell it a lot clearer than we are telling it. Now, when it comes to that breakthrough moment and why I don't feel like I had one, here's the crux that I dealt with. And I'm wondering if your listeners have dealt with this too, which is, I attributed success to certain conditions. For example, I'll be successful once I match my full-time income with this side hustle income I'm doing in photography. When I did that, I felt the exact same. So I said, all right, well, I'll be successful when I double it. I did that. I'll be successful when I double that. I did that. I'll be successful. I don't know. And I made up some like random esoteric metric. I was like, I'll be successful when I shoot 50 magazine covers in a single year. Did it. Felt the exact same. I'll be successful when I'm a best-selling author. Did it. Felt the same. Okay. I'll be successful when my conference gets over 100 people. We did that second year. 200 people, 300, 400. Felt the same every single time. Here was the problem I was making was by putting conditions on my success as I approached that finish line, whether it was financially, whether it was based on a metric of what I was doing in business, how many clients I had, whatever the metric was, when there was a condition placed on my success, as I got close to that, I just moved the finish line. I never allowed myself to cross the finish line. This is how we get ourselves into that entrepreneurial grind and forget why we chose to do what we're doing. This is why so many entrepreneurs feel like they're stuck on this hamster wheel without ever feeling satisfaction or fulfillment in the work they're doing. They feel emotionally depleted by their work. Why would we choose to pursue something that we love so much only to put ourselves in a job where we're feeling emotionally depleted by it? It does not make sense to me, but it's what so many of us do. And the shift that I had, if there was a breakthrough shift, was to stop looking at my success or my fulfillment. Not happiness. Happiness is fleeting. We're happy one second, we're angry the next. But fulfillment, that's foundational. Success is foundational. I looked at it as a choice. It's not a condition. I choose success. I choose fulfillment. I choose it every day, even on days that do not go well, even on days that were really difficult. I choose success and I choose fulfillment. And when we get ourselves in that state of mind, we are far better able to achieve the goals that we're setting for us without putting emotional attachments to those goals.
Well said. I think a word that came to mind when you were describing that was insatiable. And I think that that's something that I feel often in many places, but I think that that's just like an entrepreneurial feeling. Like you always want the next thing, or you're always striving to go more and do more and do more, not in a negative way, but in a way of you want to push your boundaries and go beyond your self limitations. So I appreciate you sharing that, because it is a series. It's maybe not just one breakthrough. It's a series of learning and developing and growing. So that's great.
And I would say, like, it's not to say that goals are bad. I have so many goals. Yeah. Every year I set over 100 goals for myself, both personally and professionally. And I work really hard to achieve those goals. But the goals do not determine my success. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah. So let's chat about photography a little bit more in depth. What is your advice to photographers who are in that position right now, who are working a 9-to-5 and are doing the side hustle that you did? What is your advice to them? What is the one thing that they need to focus on the most?
And this isn't just for photographers. This is for any of your listeners who are wanting to make that transition, want to make that pivot. It's really determine what you do in the marketplace that no one else can touch. Okay. Does that take work? It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. And it takes testing things out. You know, in my photography career, I had this mentor who said, you know, you're going to live and die based on your style. Now, when we hear style, we initially think, you know, maybe how I light something or my composition or my editing. And yes, it's all part of my style. But guess what? So is my subject matter. Guess what? So's my energy on set. So's my team that I choose to work with. So's my brand. So's my story. So's all the marketing messaging that I put out. All of it is my style. And when I hone in on who I am, what I do, and why it matters, and most importantly, why it matters is because it's different. And I show that it's different from anyone else in the marketplace who's trying to do that one thing. That's what's going to get me remembered. Okay. So when it comes to photography, I'm not known as a fashion photographer or an architectural photographer. I'm known for my sports and athletic portraiture. It's what I'm known for. Now, does that mean I'm going to lose out on projects that are not in my zone of genius? Of course I am. Of course I am. Like if I'm bidding on a fashion project, what's the chances of me winning? Well, if I have a good relationship with the client, I might have a chance. Other than that, I'm not winning this project. It's not likely, because why would they hire me over someone who might be better at? But if I'm competing, let's just say, for a fitness magazine cover, good luck competing against me, because I've owned this platform for as long as I've had my career. And that's why I have the 500 covers, because I can show that, look, I know how to make the imagery that works. I'm a specialist in this. And if you're looking for a photographer who wants to create imagery for your social media, you're probably not going to hire me. I'm not the one for you. That's okay too. But if you want to hire a photographer to help you work for marketing to the media, I probably am your person. So it's what do you do and who do you do it for and how is it different? These are the questions we start to ask ourselves. All right. When everyone is doing this thing over here, you just head in this direction right over here. Okay. And for those who are not watching a video, I'm pointing in two different directions here. I had a client who she did something so brilliant. She's a personal trainer and she put out this platform to say, you know, aren't you annoyed as a client when your trainer posts before and after photos of you? As a trainer, I will never disrespect your privacy. I will never post a before and after photo of you. Now, let's look at this in a silo. Is posting before and after photos of your clients a bad thing? Not at all. Not at all. And in fact, for a lot of personal trainers, it's how they show the proof of their work. Look, here's how we celebrate the success of our clients. But here's a person saying, aren't you annoyed when this happens? So if you're not annoyed when this happens, that's where you stop listening. You're like, not for me. But if you ever felt uncomfortable about your trainer showing off a photo of you to advertise your body to potential clients of yours, you're going to graft onto her messaging. So she separated herself in the marketplace just by doing this. Once again, this is not to say what other coaches or trainers are doing is wrong. It's her approach and how her approach is different. I do the same thing in my coaching business where I say, hey, listen, aren't you so over and irritated with business coaches who just want to motivate and inspire you, but never actually want to teach you how to get work done? Yeah, me too. That's why when you work with me, we're going to focus on business development and marketing strategy. So if you're ready to get to work, let's get to work. Now, if you're looking for a coach and you love the coaches who talk about manifestation, motivation, and inspiration, is that going to resonate with you? Absolutely not. I will not resonate with. But if you've ever felt that, you know what, I've kind of seen this too much. I've kind of heard this thing too much. You're going to grip onto my messaging and realize that I'm closer to the coach you want to have. So this is how we start to create a differentiation for who you are, what your platform is, and how you start to stand out in this crowded marketplace. We need to move from being reactive in our marketing, which reactive marketing is I'll set up an Instagram, I'll post a bunch of stuff, I'll build a website, and I hope people find it. That's reactive. If you get hired reactively, okay, great, but that's just icing on the cake. You cannot build a sustainable business off a reactionary plan. Proactive is, who am I trying to serve? What am I trying to do? Why does it matter? Okay, why is it different? And then going out, finding those people, building those connections, building those relationships, showing what you can do for them that no one else can do for them, and then inviting them, asking them to take the next step with you, because you never get what you do not ask for. And that's another big mistake a lot of people have, is they think, well, I have all the pieces, people just figure it out and they'll just click a purchase button. No, if you're not asking for people to invest in you or people to hire you, it is not going to be happening.
I almost forgot I was a podcast host for a second here, because I'm just like in your words right now. Like, I'm here listening. I'm really into that. No, this is amazing. And I really appreciate you going into that. When I was talking about photographers, if I work with a photographer, there has to be some level of comfortability. There has to be some sort of vibe, right? So if I'm looking for a photographer, how does someone know who the right photographer is for them? Maybe not just, based on what you said, but their style of shooting. Like, maybe one's more directive. Maybe one is just like laid back and lets you do whatever. Or maybe someone does need to be coached, like put your hand like this. So can you talk a little bit about that?
It is such a good question. And I got to be honest with you, I work with lots of photographers, and for some reason, and I think it's just artists in general, not all artists are the best when it comes to working with other people. Maybe that's why we chose the arts, so we can communicate and hone in on our vision or our narrative, right? And when I work with photographers, and I work with photographers, as early on as a high school level, because one of the things I do every year is I'm part of this big high school workshop where we bring out like hundreds of high school students. We spend 8 hours with them, me and a bunch of other professionals, teaching them a trade or a craft. I lecture at colleges, so I see the same thing, and I work with pros who will come to my workshops. It's when you have someone on set with you, when you're working with a person. So, not like I'm photographing this ball mason jar, but when I'm photographing, let's say you, Gina, okay? And I take a photo of you, and then I look at the back of my camera. Now, what is going through my head is the light, the contrast, where the highlights, where the shadows, what's my composition like? Am I liking the hair and makeup? Are there any touch-ups that need to be done? How's the outfit sitting on you? There's 101 things that are going through my mind. Now, if I'm doing this and I'm quiet or I'm hemming and hawing, you don't think that I'm thinking about any of the technical specificities or the composition of what I'm trying to create. What you think is, oh, he doesn't like what I'm doing. Something's wrong, right? I mean, being on camera is so disarming. It is something that, whether I'm working with professionals or whether I'm working with someone who's never been on camera before, I have to make them feel so confident. I have to bring something out of them that they didn't even know was possible, because we're trying to communicate a narrative here. One of the mantras I have within my company is, I do not take pictures. It is not hard to take a good looking picture. It really isn't. Just YouTube how to take a good looking picture. You can take a good looking picture. Just find something that's really good looking. You could take a good looking. I had another mentor when I was in college. Says, hey, James, you want to take the most beautiful photos? I said, yes. He said, photograph beautiful things. I was like, thanks. So it is not hard to take good looking photos. I do not take good photos. I make images that work. There's a difference there. Taking a photo is capturing something. Making an image is seeing the story in your mind that you want to create and working with that person to create that image. Okay. So if you want to hire a photographer, your first step is to really, with a very discernible eye, judge what that photographer is already doing in their work. Are they already telling amazing stories? Can you see yourself in their imagery? And not like, well, maybe it could work. Or maybe if I tried to get him to do something else other than what he or she is already doing. Don't do that. That's like someone coming to me and say, listen, James, I would love for us to do like a 12-hour lifestyle photo shoot where we just go around all of Arizona and just take photos outside all day long. I'm not going to do it, because one, I don't think I'm that good at. Two, I'm not that interested in it. Three, I would charge way too much for it. Okay. But if someone came to me and says, hey, I want to make some dynamic images. Here's some ideas similar to what you've already done, but I want you to take a different spin on it. Hey, I'm all over that. I'm going to jump on that with just creative ferocity. Okay. So you find the photographer for the result that you want to have. That's really the first step is what are you trying to create with these images? Do you just need some great lifestyle photos for your website? Do you need some really good action shots that you can use for your marketing materials? Do you need some good shots for publicity? So what's your goal? From there, who's the right photographer or photographers? Not everything's going to get done in a single photo shoot. That's okay. Especially in 2020. We're in just the content is king methodology. Like you will have to work a lot. Who is the right photographer or photographers that can capture this goal? Who can help me create this goal? Then it's having that conversation with them to say, this is my goal. This is what I want. I've worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of clients over my career. Very few of them have come to me and say, this is my specific goal and what I want to achieve with these photos. And I got to be honest with you, the ones who do, the very few who do, the less than 1% who do, never have been unsatisfied with the results. Why? Because I was clearly able to understand what they needed. And if they're not coming to me, then I'm just asking lots of questions. So some clients always wonder why I ask so many questions. It's because I just want to take photos. I want to make images that work. So I need to know what works for you so I can make the right images for you. So these are the three things. What's your goal? Finding the right photographer who matches that goal versus trying to get someone to fit into a box that just doesn't work for them or that they're not interested in. And then having that conversation about the goals and results of the photo shoot. And believe me, especially if you're working with photographers who may not have a lot of experience working with people or who may be uncomfortable asking a lot of questions, if you come extra prepared, they're going to be thankful for you because most photographers want to provide a good service. They want to help you. But if you're not coming to them with what you need, they might not have the confidence to ask. And it's like, I work with lots of professional athletes. Professional athletes are not professional models. I mean, in many of them, you could not find more uncomfortable people to be on camera. Doesn't matter. I still got to make something awesome with them. Right. So it's being willing to have that relationship and build a rapport, even if the photographer is too nervous to do those first steps.
Right. So you're open to a collaborative effort on set. For me personally, I'm all about like coming up with ideas, but also you don't want to take away from the other person's creative, like that's their art, like the photography is their art. So it's got to be this good balance of, hey, I want to, like, this is my vision. Can we make that happen without taking it away?
But here's the thing. It's not taking it away because you're the client paying. That's the thing that you need to remember. As a client, you need to empower yourself as a client. You are investing in this. This is an investment. Working with photographers is not cheap. It's an investment. Do not waste the investment. Do it appropriately. You're the client. Set your expectations. But if a client comes to me, we have an expectation, and they tell me, hey, I want to do this, and it's not something that I feel comfortable doing, or it's not something that would even fit within my range, I'll tell them that, and then they can choose to hire someone else. Or I could say, you know what, this isn't necessarily something I would do, or hey, here's how I might put my spin on this. Here's how I would come at this creatively. This is what I do with editorial and commercial projects all the time. I have to work with art directors and photo editors who will storyboard out an idea and say, this is what we're looking for. And I then have to fit my creative vision within the scope of what they are looking for. That's how you marry together successful creative collaboration.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. Thank you so much for that. Let's get off of photography for a little bit because I feel like I could keep going with that one all day, but we have more topics to cover, and I want to talk about your book. So tell me about your book. What's it called? When did you write it? And when did it come out?
So the book is called Fit Business Guide, the Workout Plan for Your Brand. And it was a challenge for myself to actually create a real tangible book. We released it near the end of 2018. It became a bestseller in January of 2019. So it was about 3 months after we dropped it. It hit the bestsellers list on Amazon. The thing that really inspired this book to come out was a few years earlier, I had this amazing idea for a book on a specialized type of marketing that no one had ever written about and was really not being practiced that often. And I was looking at this like, oh, I'm going to clean up on this. like, Gina, this would be my breakthrough moment. And so I started writing this book. And after a few weeks of writing it, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I need to do more research. So I put the book up on a shelf or saved it onto a disk drive. And I started to do more research. And then a few months later, I was like, oh yeah, I should work on that a little more. And I took it down off my hard drive and I worked on it a little more. Then I put it back up. I was like, well, maybe I need to do even more research. Maybe I should interview more people about this. Maybe I should find a co-writer. All these things delaying coming out with this book. All right. Because I was so nervous that I didn't know enough. I wasn't experienced enough. I didn't have enough education, background, whatever, permission to write this book. And I kept searching for validation on how to write this book. So I was struggling with imposter syndrome big time. Well, finally the book came out. I got it on my desk at my old marketing job. But here was the problem. It did not have my name on it. And the reason it didn't have my name on it is because my book was still on that hard drive in draft form, never finished. Someone else came up with the idea, they wrote a book, and now they're the subject matter expert on it because I was trying to perfect it. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to validate that I deserved to write it. Okay. So I went through that and that stung. That stung bad. Hey, all the times I've fallen flat on my face by trying to do something that didn't work, that didn't really hurt that much because I was able to figure, I told you what happened with FITposium. We were able to figure it out. We were able to pivot and make it work. Okay. But to have an idea and to sit on it and have someone else do it, that one stung a lot. And that I carried with me. And it really gave me an inner mantra, which is foresight without action only leads to hindsight. I had the foresight on this idea. I did not take action. I did not hit print. I did not hit publish. So all I was left with was hindsight. So when I set out to write this new book, which is essentially it's how you build, market, and profit from a brand as a health and wellness professional, the mission was, when does this come out? That was one of the first things is, when does this come out? Because unless I have a date that this is launching, there's no point starting a date that I kick it off. All right. So I put a date on the calendar of when I wanted to get it out. Now, did I hit that date? I did not hit that date. I was about 3 or 4 months late on it, but I still got it out. Okay. And the 3 or 4 months was just in the editing process anyway. So I got my first draft done right around my initial due date. And then it became about the really fun part about getting it out and getting it in front of people. So when we saw that we hit that bestseller list just a few months later, that was awesome. That was really cool. That was a very rewarding feeling. But this idea, whatever idea it is that you're sitting on, trying to wait for it to perfect it. Listen, we fear that we live in a static world. We don't. We live in a dynamic world. I was trying to write an ebook even a few years before that. And once again, I got stuck in that. Maybe I just need to perfect it. Maybe I just need to interview a few more people. Maybe I just need to. I released this ebook, I want to say a year later than I wanted to. This was before my printed book. I released my ebook a year later and it sold a lot. But was it infinitely better than what I had a year earlier when I wanted to release it? Nope. And here's the thing. I could have released a year earlier, made all the money that entire year, released a second version by the time I figure out what to want. When you release something to market, even if it's not perfect, when you release something that is great to market, and you know it's great because you worked on it, you get feedback. And that feedback is what helps you refine the next version or the next iteration. Same with the podcast. I talk to so many people who want to launch a podcast. And they've recorded 20 interviews and they have yet to hit publish. I'm like, how are you going to know what to do in your podcast to make it better unless you release the first 20 episodes? Right. How would you ever know?
Right.
You adjust things in real time as you're going through it. And if there was something terrible in my book that I want to change, guess what? I just released a version 2.0.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there wasn't, but.
Yeah, I love that. I think that people need to feel comfortable just letting it go, just releasing it. Because as you can see, my podcast is very amateur. I'm not a professional. I woke up one day and I was like, I have no idea how to do a podcast. I have no idea who I'm going to talk to, and I just did it. So yeah, just go for it, regardless of how it looks. I'm very proud that I even have the opportunity to speak with some of the people who have been willing to come on the show and just talk to me. And I think it's got to be authentic. That's where you got to start with whatever it is that you're putting out. As long as it's authentic to you, keep going.
Do you think, and here, this is the point, do you think your clients really care? that you don't have a lot of experience? Do you think your listeners care that this is a new venture for you? Do you think that they're holding this against you?
No, I think they're enjoying it.
Yes, that's the thing. It's like all people care about, because we're selfish as consumers, all we care about is results. So if your show gives me the results I wanted when I click subscribe, that's all I care about. And I don't care about the whether it's audio quality or whatever excuse that we have in our head of why we're not launching yet.
Yeah.
As long as you and your service or your product or whatever it is you're releasing achieves the thing that you said it was going to achieve, I'm happy because you gave me results.
Love that. Can you tell me a little bit more about your book and publishing it? What are the steps if someone is looking to publish their first book? I've read a lot about self-publishing. Do you send it out? What is the editing process like? Did you have a support team? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So when you're going to publish a book, you really have three routes that you can take. Mm-hmm. And I'll give the two extremes first. And then there's a hybrid, which is really just middle of the road between the two. The one is, you mentioned, self-publish, which is what I did with my book. The other is to go exclusively with the publisher. Now, the self-publish route, the benefits of self-publishing is you control everything. You control what the book is, what the book's about, how long the book is, when the book gets released, the marketing plan for the book, getting the book into the hands of others. Like, you're in control of everything. And you owe no money to anyone else, which is also really nice. Okay. The downside to self-publishing is just what I just said. You get to do everything yourself. Okay. So if you do not know something, or if you are uncertain about something, that's part of it as well. Okay. So in the self-publishing route, guess what? The good is the same as the bad. You're in control of everything. Okay. Now, the other end of the spectrum is to work exclusively with the publisher. In that sense, you have to start sending out your pitch letters or your manifestos to all the publishers that you're hoping to work with, in the hopes of getting someone to opt in to say, yes, we're willing to send you an advance on this, or, you know what, send us the full manuscript and then we'll determine whether or not we want to put our publishing name behind this. Now, the benefits is, hey, if you get someone to approve you, you get some advance money. You get some support with the marketing and the rollout. The downsides, it's really hard to get. Okay. There are more books being published every year. It beats the number of books being published in the year before. All right. So it's hard to get, and hard to get noticed, and it's hard to get that attention. Right. So then there's the middle road, which is the hybrid road, which you have a lot of independent publishers, which are helping independent authors or solopreneur authors to cultivate books. And it's more of a shared responsibility, where you're not going to look at the advance, or you're not going to, really get that big paycheck that a big publisher might get you. But you have more of a mutual shared responsibility in the marketing of this book. All right. So the route you take is really how much you want to control. I like the self-publish route for myself because I wanted to control all the elements. I understand the marketing of this. I can control the rollout of this. Now, if you put out a self-published book, could you ever hit let's say a New York Times bestseller list, or a Washington or USA Today bestseller list? Nope. They don't feature self-published books. They only feature books on publishers. But I'm happy with an Amazon best publisher list because I control getting my book in front of people, and I control what's in my book and what's not in my book. My book's not a long book. I think it's maybe 100, 150 pages. Mm-hmm. And the thing that bothers me so much about working with publishers is when they say, listen, we can't release a book that's 150 pages. You have to add another 200 pages. We got to pad this a little bit. I don't want to write a bunch of fluff. I hate I always notice, I don't know if you ever notice this when you read books. Let's say you get a book that's about average 300 pages. The first 50 pages are amazing. The last 50 pages are amazing. The middle 100 pages are so much the same over and over and over again. It's like, okay, we get it. We get it. Like, the first 50 pages, the last 50 pages, all I need. I don't know why I need this big chunk in the middle. So that's kind of like the different sides, as well as the pros and cons with each. But I think if you were to do, let's say, a self-publishing route, I think the big thing is you have to build a successful promotional runway. This starts weeks, if not months, before the book lands. What I'd recommend is setting up an announcement page where people can opt in to an email list, maybe get the first chapter for free for opting in. So you start to drive traffic to build an email list, sending them the first chapter for free, so you can build a list of people who want to purchase the book when it's out. From there, running a pre-sale online. The great thing about pre-sales and the way pre-sales work are, if I'm buying your book pre-sale, you're not charging my credit card right now. You only charge my credit card when the book drops. So let's say your book drops, we'll just project forward April 1st. Your book drops April 1st. You start pre-selling today. You get 100 credit cards between today and April 1st to say, I want your book pre-sale. The processor only processes their cards on April 1st when your book drops, meaning you just sold 100 books like that. That's going to look really good in rankings, which update every hour on Amazon. Means it looks like you just had a lot of sales in a very short amount of time. Mm-hmm. It's a great way to get your book to accelerate quickly on the list. Okay. Then it's developing a rollout campaign in the weeks after the book's release. And we did everything from, we teamed up with other people to help promote the book. So we had kind of a social partnership calendar where we selected different days for different people to promote the book. I did a podcast tour where I went on different shows. I went on TV, I went on radio, I went on podcasts. I did IG co-lives with people talking about the book and offering free copies of the book to listeners. So I used the book a lot as a way to, almost like a business card. Okay, where I was just giving away free copies to encourage more people to buy copies. Okay, we ran a big contest about getting 5-star reviews on Amazon, where it's like, hey, if you give us a 5-star review on Amazon, we're going to gift you. And we gifted some headphones for one. We gifted some free coaching sessions. So we encourage people to get the book, check out the book in order for the chance to win some free stuff afterwards. So this is how we started to cultivate the marketing of the book. And then also, because I had the background at FITposium, I was able to promote the book from stage. So we actually did our first rollout during FITposium 2018. We had the book available in person, which was really cool.
Did you print many copies or did you print as ordered?
So, I mean, most independent publishers are all print on demand, but I've advance ordered thousands of them because I still use them to this day. And probably in my studio, I have a stack of a few hundred that I send out to clients, or I send out to podcasts that I want to be on, or I give out as gifts or I give them to new clients as they come through my studio. So like I said, it's for me, I mean, because the book is, I wrote it a couple of years ago. I still make a little money off of it, but I did not make the book to make money. That's the thing. I did not do it to make money. I made the book to be really a key for me, a key that will open up doors that I was not opening before. Maybe certain podcasts I want to be on, maybe to have certain conversations, or maybe to be able to introduce myself to certain people.
I think on every one of my shows, I tell all of my guests that I'm going to write a book someday. So that's why I'm so interested in this.
It's a good question because it's, start with the drop date.
Yeah.
And then just set a word count every day. And, we look at, Isaac Asimov, he wrote something like 500 books in his career at a time when it was really hard to publish books. And he just had this system where he sat down at his typewriter every day, starting at 6 a.m, and he would type till 12:30 in the afternoon every day without fail. Sometimes it was really good. Sometimes it really sucked, but that's how he wrote 500 books.
Wow. Dedication for sure. Can we talk a little bit about your support system or a team that you've built over time? Because I'm sure that you haven't done all of this alone. Who has been your biggest support, and how have you developed a team for each one of your segments that you work in?
The first person I ever hired still works for me, and that's 15 years later. She now is a team member. I don't just hire her; she's actually one of our team members, which is nice. It was all about honing in on, if I want to grow this, how do I get from being within my business to working on my business? How do I get from giving myself another job to being the business owner or the entrepreneur who oversees everything? And it was really just looking at what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. Now, when I look at what I do on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, there are only a few things that only I can do, or that I can do better than anyone else. All right. Now, we like to think that, we can do everything better than everyone else, but that's not true. And we know that's not true. Things that I could, no one can take the photos for me. That's one. Okay. But guess what? Even that's pretty flexible too, because I now have a photographer on my team. And guess what? People hire him through me. All right. I have a videographer on my team. People hire him through me. So even that is a little bit flexible. But there are certain things that right away I knew was taking way too much of my time, and my time is valuable. If you want a scary equation, take the gross revenue you had in a year and divide it by the total number of hours you worked in that year. And that means everything. That means hours you were working with clients. That means hours you're on social media. That means hours you were checking email, hours you were with, writing copy, hours you were, whatever it is, responding to text messages from your clients. Divide one by the other, and it'll scare the hell out of you at how little you're making per hour. What do you want to be making per hour? Okay. If you want to be making more per hour, you need to be getting some of these tasks off of your to-do list. For me, the first task was graphic and web design. Now, I learned web design back in the 90s when we had to code it out by writing HTML code. That's how I learned it. So can I design a very simple website, like a GeoCities website that looks like it was published in 1997? Yeah, I can. I know the code. I still know it to this day. That doesn't work anymore. And also took me a lot of time, right? Just sitting there I would spend 20 hours writing website code for what, a one-page website where I can just spend a few dollars and have a web designer do it for me, and it looks way better and converts way better. Yeah, my time is worth more than what I spent on that. Graphic design was right there. So a graphic and web designer, she was the first person I hired. From there, it was, okay, now that I have all this work that I want to do, I need some help with my administrative. So it was then hiring a executive assistant on. It was hiring a production manager on. I was hiring a photo editor on. So it was all the things that I was able to get off my plate that allowed me to do the work that only I could do, or that I was doing that was moving the needle on the company forward. So one of the things that I've never outsourced is sales. I'm still the sole salesperson for my company. Why? Because I can sell. And I can sell my services better than anyone else, in my opinion. All right. Now, do I have people on my team who do marketing? I do. Absolutely. I have a digital marketing manager. She's amazing. But I do the sales. Okay. So it's understanding what moves the needle forward in my business that I want to be doing, because I like doing the sales too. And it's better served to have someone else do it, to free my time up to do more of what does matter. And I understand if your listeners are bootstrapping this and they're just like, listen, I don't have a lot to invest right now. Neither did I at the start. So it's, what can you get off your plate at a investment? Because this is an investment. It gives you your time back. When we look at the three assets we have money, we have possessions, and we have time. Guess what? Money, you can always make more money, but yet we cling to money. You can always make more money. Possessions, we can always get more possessions. We hold on to possessions, so afraid to lose them, just get more possessions. Time, we waste so much of our time. We waste insane amounts of our time. But out of all three of those assets is the only one we never get back. Yeah. It is not replenishable. It does not get resourced. It never comes back. It is gone. And I would rather invest, because it's an investment. I would rather invest to free up my time, because I know what I can do with that time. And I can do a lot more with that time than spend on this one project or spend on this one task that someone else could probably do it better than I can.
Did you have trouble finding people that you could trust, or did you find that you reached out to people that you already knew, or what was that mindset like? And how did you choose to give up some of those things? Because I think that that's really hard for some of us who are just independent sole proprietors. Like, we're used to having the control over everything. And so finding someone, it would have to be the right person.
I think we go through a couple of phases. One is you start to hire your friends. That's phase one, because it's the people you're around, it's the people you're most comfortable with, it's the people you trust. And I still have some of my friends that still work for me, and it's awesome. It's really cool to be able to go to work with my friends every day. Like, that's something I really enjoy. Now, did all my friends I hired end up working out? No, not at all. Most did not, to be completely honest. Right. And, the reasons they didn't work out is maybe partially them and maybe partially me. As you kind of stop hiring your friends, then you start hiring affordable labor, so people you can find online that, you're paying a minimum wage to. And then after that, you hire specialists. So, when I look at my company or the 8 brands we run, I have people in all 3 buckets. I have, some of my friends still work for me. I have people who, we just hired off, whether it's Fiverr, whether we hired them off Indeed or LinkedIn, who they're getting those micro tasks done. And then I have specialists on my team as well, who specialists come at a premium. Yeah. There's this pattern we go through when we start working with someone new. It doesn't matter which they are. We're at the start, we're on this really energetic high. because we're thinking how much we're going to be able to get done, how amazing this is going to be. Oh, I'm going to be able to focus myself. But then as we get started, we realize that bringing someone on your team takes a lot of time and energy because you got to train them. They're not inside your head. They don't know what your preferences are, what your cadences are, what you need, what you don't need, what the beat of your business is. Okay, what it's like to work with you. So the energy starts to go down, as does their productivity, because they're figuring stuff out. Just like you're figuring out how to coach them and how to lead them and how to manage them. And then you hit this bottom out point. Now, at this bottom out point, one of two things happens. Either A, and I know this because I've done it, you get really frustrated and you say, I'll just do it myself again. You know what? I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to do it myself again. They didn't do it up to my expectations, even though I never told them what my expectations were. They should have just been inside my head and known I'm just going to do it myself. And it just continues to go down, and they end up quitting or you end up firing them. Okay, and then you just keep going down that same pattern over and over and over again. The difference is when you hit that point, and this is someone who you actually want to be working with, who you remember why you chose to work with them, that there is real potential, that it's not just because they're your friend and you just want to work with them, but there is something there that you can work with. You reinvest in that moment right there, in the training, in the expectations, and you push through dip, and you people who've been with us. I have people with us for 15 years. I have people with us for 10 years and everywhere in between. It's because we chose to push. Say you're hiring someone super affordable that you're just hiring offline. Start with small tasks where you set the budget and you set the expectations. For example, let's just take an example of your podcast. Let's say you want to outsource your podcast editing. Okay, so you hire George, who's a podcast editor. And you're like, okay, George, I need you to post-produce 2 podcasts for me per week. The average length of my podcast is 1 hour. I need the audio cleaned up. I need 2 promo clips pulled from each podcast, ranging from 15 to 30 seconds. I need the podcast posted to my Libsyn or my Blueberry account or my SoundCloud account or my Anchor or wherever I need it posted. I need you to do the show notes. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to test you on 2 of these. And I want you to send everything to me first, and then I'll QC it before it goes live. Okay. And I would like to have all this work done within, spend no more than 3 hours per episode at this rate per hour. Okay. So you've set the expectation and you've set the container of the expectation. And it's a small project because you're giving them a test runway. Then when they do that project, you can then look to give feedback and you say, okay, what went well in this? What could be improved in this? Okay. You know what? These things weren't up to my expectations. Maybe I just need to be more clear about, or maybe I was not clear at all about this, or maybe I realized halfway through that I never even brought up the fact that I needed these sized 1080 by 1080. I need the same one 1920 by 1080. Well, I need to adjust my expectations. That's not George's fault. Or maybe George forgot to do something. Well, that's something we need to have a conversation about. So having this opportunity for feedback when you build this container of your expectations and what they need to work with. And this way you're not getting someone saying, oh, this was 20 hours worth of work. Here's your bill. And you're like, well, I thought this would be 6 hours worth of work. Oh, no, it's 20. Well, you didn't set that expectation. So you start with small, and then if that goes well, then you can build upon there. This is how I have people in my team who've been with us for so long and who've amassed bigger positions within my company. It's because we started with small things and we're able to build up from there the more we understood that cadence of working together.
Yeah, setting the expectation, that's great advice. Like, you control the outcome that way, and I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I have a couple more questions, just quick questions. You can answer, 1 or 2 sentences. What is the best advice that you've ever been given?
I had this VP when I worked in marketing, and he knew I was really focused on building my photography career. And he popped his head in my office and he said, if you really want to grow your photography career, just do this. Be seen, be heard, be read. Now, what that was the forefront of how I really look at what I call omnipotent marketing. Lots of people call omnipotent marketing, which is to be in front of your target audience in every way possible. Meaning, Be Seen, I'm getting involved in organizations. I'm speaking on stages. I'm doing lots of video work. Be Heard, I'm on podcasts. I'm on stages. I'm on radio shows. And then I'm doing calls like this. And Be Read, I'm writing lots of articles. I have my blogs coming out, my social media posts. Be Seen, Be Heard, Be Read. Find where your audience is, go in front of them, add value to their lives. That gives them a reason to pay attention to you.
So powerful. What is your most proud accomplishment?
My most proud accomplishment, I'm going to go personal on that one. I was so myopically focused on my business for so long at the sacrifice of my health, at the sacrifice of my mental clarity, and absolutely at the sacrifice of my relationships. So I would say, the biggest accomplishment was when I reversed that, when I put my personal health first, followed by my mental awareness, followed by my relationships. And I would not have success in any of those areas had I not prioritized them over my business. And guess what? When I prioritize those even over my business, I get way more done in my business on top of it because I'm building on a better foundation.
And last but not least, since we didn't really talk about this, and this is basically the basis of my whole podcast, we answer the buzzword question, what is your why? So I want to know, what is your why? Why do you continue doing this? What motivates you to continue in this space?
The way I see where everyone is at in their trajectory, and this is something that I hope your listeners really take to heart, is I've been there when I've been at conferences or when I've listened to podcasts, when I've met with certain celebrities or coaches or authors or leaders or influencers, is we're sitting there and we're trying to learn from them, but it feels like they're a mile away from us, that they don't remember what it was like to be in our shoes, right? Like, oh man, I'm just out of college. I'm trying to bootstrap this crap together and I don't know what the F I'm doing. They don't remember. Right. And the thing that I really want to drill home is that every single person is one step away from you. Your job is to figure out what that one step is, so you can figure out how to take that next step. And then from there, it's to find the person who's one step behind you and show them what that one next step is. I would not be where I am in my career had certain people not shown me what that next step is. Had that newspaper editor put a camera in my hands, I'd never started in photography. Had that other newspaper publisher not taken me out of the reporter pool and put me in the photographer pool and say, step here, I never would have really invested in photography. Had that VP never encouraged me to cultivate the marketing of my side hustle, I never would have learned how to build an effective marketing platform for my business. We're one step away. People helped me figure out what the next step was for me. And I still people are helping me figure out what the next step is for me. It is my responsibility to show others the next step in front of them.
And I feel like that's exactly what you're doing, at least for me. Just being on this podcast and reaching out to me in the way that you did and just being open. We didn't know each other prior to connecting on Instagram. And so I think that you are truly living what it is that you just said, at least from my perspective. And I can't thank you enough for coming on and letting me speak openly and asking you questions about entrepreneurship, business coaching, photography, writing a book, all of these amazing things. And I'm sure that I could ask you so many more questions, but I will wrap up the podcast just again by expressing so much gratitude for taking the time. It's amazing to have people like you who are willing and open to do something like this. So thank you.
Well, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on, but really just a huge vote of gratitude for you for doing this show, because you are honestly living the brand that I was just talking about, which is we did not have resources like this when I was getting my career started. We had to proactively go out and find people and ask for things. But the fact that you've built this platform where you're sharing these stories, where you're bringing people on to give their insights, what you're doing for your listeners is you're giving people the permission, even though they don't need permission, but you are giving them the permission through inspiration and through this information, this insight that allows them to move forward with more clarity and more confidence in their journey. So you are doing amazing work, and I'm just so proud that I got to be a part of it, Gina.
Yes, thank you so much. And I look forward to staying connected, beyond this as well, and hopefully doing, some more collaborations in the future. And it's always great to network. So thanks again and have a great day.
And that does it, guys. Thank you so much for listening through to the end of that episode. I hope you'll share this with your friends, your family, and your network so we can continue growing this community even more and hear the stories that have yet to be told. Please let me know your thoughts too. Reach out. Tell me what you've learned. Tell me what's resonated with you. And let me know who you want to hear from next. I can't wait to talk to you guys soon.